Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to my channel. My name is Tonibryanne, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing the problematic aspects of the coquette aesthetic. And along with the coquette aesthetic, we'll also be mentioning hyper femininity. This is something that has been increasingly pushed on platforms like TikTok. Before we get into today's video, please be sure you guys are following me on all my social media platforms. That is Instagram, TikTok, and of course, YouTube. Click that subscribe button right now down below. And if you are a reader, please be sure to join my book club. The book we'll be reading for the remainder of this month is The White Rage. This book speaks on the history of the racial divide and why so many white people have so much hatred and anger towards Black. There's a lot of controversy tied towards this book, but I do believe it'd be a really great conversation to have. So if you guys would like to join the book club and read this book along with me, please be sure to join my book club. It'll be linked down below on Patreon. Now let's get into a little bit of positivity. Today's quote of the day is, "I give thanks even when I am struggling." Today's verse of the day is James chapter 1 verse 27, and it reads, "Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world." And without further ado, you guys, let's get straight into today's video.
Taking you in this moment.
So the coquette aesthetic we have been seeing everywhere. Like literally every woman seems to be interested or trying to adhere to the coquette aesthetic and its standards. And if you have not heard of the coquette aesthetic by its proper name, just think of bows, pink, frilly dresses and skirts, flowers in hair, pigtails, braids. Any woman you see dressing as someone you would identify as a 5-year-old or what a 5-year-old would typically wear, but a 25-year-old is wearing it instead. That's just about what coquette aesthetic or fashion is. Now, a lot of women believe that they're just being trendy by dressing this way. But as always, there is a deeper connotation behind the trends that we follow. Coquette is supposed to be young, feminine, and flirtatious. And unfortunately, these qualities can be seen as seductive towards a certain kind of man. This hyper feminine way of dressing is quickly allowing for a more pedophilic view with ties to misogyny. So before we get into that aspect of things, misogyny and philia, which are two different things that link to the coquette culture, let's first begin with the rise of coquette. So I don't know if you guys can tell, but I tried to dress a little coquette for this video. I realized I don't have a lot of like hyper feminine clothing. I love pink. Pink is my absolute favorite color, but I have mostly neutrals in my closet, and I don't have a bunch of like prairie girl styled fashion, though it is incredibly trendy. But as I just stated, we'll get into what I wear and what other women are wearing as well. Let's start off with the rise of coquette. Back in the day, coquette was a French term for a seductress. And according to the Oxford Dictionary, a seductress is a woman who seduces someone, especially one who entices a man into sexual activity. Men in the past particularly feared this kind of woman. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because these women had expert knowledge in fashion, something that men did not have total control over. As we know, back in the day, men controlled literally every aspect of women's lives. I mean, women couldn't even get a credit card until the 1970s. So imagine back then. And honestly, the term was kind of derogatory. It wasn't exactly a compliment to be called coquette. So of course, when men back then couldn't control something, and heck, even today, they began to demonize coquette. And that was because coquette was an avenue for women to overturn traditional gender roles. And this overturning can even be seen today as women wear whatever the heck they want. It isn't just the flirtatious origin of coquette. Now women are able to dress more masculine, women are able to dress emo, flirty, gender neutral, etc., etc., etc. So now let's get into the modernization of coquette. So the coquette aesthetic we see and know today came back around in about 2010 from Tumblr. And this was due to the nymphette aesthetic that came from the book Lolita. I don't know why I added a Spanish accent to it. Lolita. But I feel like it sounds better when you add the little accent. Lolita.
So Lolita was a book written by Vladimir Nabokov, and I really hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly because y'all be so ready to drag me when I mispronounce one little thing. But it's okay. It comes with the territory. I get it. Y'all just think I'm too smart to be messing up. It's okay. So here is a brief summary of this book written by Vladimir. So Lolita is a controversial novel by Vladimir Nabokov that tells the story of Humbert, a middle-aged man who becomes infatuated with a 12-year-old girl named Lolita. The novel explores themes of obsession, manipulation, and the destructive power of forbidden desire. So I think the book could be a good read, but if you're not much of a reader, the movie is available on Tubi, which is completely free, so go check it out if you're interested in it. But yes, the freaking nets. Unfortunately, the book has been incredibly misrepresented and has been sexualized in media. It has now turned into the symbol of young women seducing men, or should I say young girls seducing older men. And I want to be clear, this book came out back in 1955, and I want to emphasize that it was written from the perspective of Humbert, a middle-aged man that abused a 12-year-old girl. She wasn't seducing him. I don't know where people got that idea from. A 12-year-old cannot seduce a grown man. But it has turned into this huge phenomenon that has transitioned into coquette culture, which is now the imagery of a young girl seducing men. Over time, the coquette aesthetic has evolved to what is today. Pink, frilly, lace material, pleated skirts, the schoolgirl aesthetic, which we'll talk about later, and kind of embracing a youthful femininity. And it's clear the aesthetic has been influenced and embraced by some popular names we see today. People like Lana Del Rey, who really blew up in the 2010s. Ariana Grande, another one. And even today, Sabrina Carpenter, who embraces a lot of pink and doll-like aesthetic of clothing. Now let's get into the infantilization of Coquette. So let's define infantilization. Infantilization has the word infant in the beginning of it, and an infant is a baby. So that kind of describes what infantilization is. According to Wikipedia, though I know they're not necessarily a reliable source, but this definition is very accurate. Infantilization is the prolonged treatment of one who is not a child, as though they are a child. Studies have shown that an individual, when infantilized, is overwhelmingly likely to feel disrespected. Such individuals may report a sense of transgression akin to dehumanization. So in this case, we're going to be discussing the infantilization of women. And this is when women are treated or portrayed in ways that make them seem more childlike. Even though they're adults, they're women, women are adults. And that's like calling a woman baby, calling her dear, sweetheart, honey, or just acting as if they can't do things that men can do. You can see this portrayed a lot in movies and TV shows. This is when you see the female character that is portrayed as super naive and dependent on men or others around her. And it's almost as if they need to be rescued. A perfect example of this for my generation would be Cat Valentine in Victorious. Cat was seen as this sweet little girl who was an airhead and constantly needed help with just answering simple questions, and she really struggled with keeping up with the rest of the group. And we saw Cat Valentine wearing bows, she was wearing pink and frilly clothing, little mini skirts, mini dresses. She is a perfect trope of the infantilization of the coquette. London Tipton from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody was another perfect example. And one really interesting thing that I've noticed as I have been binge watching these shows that I watched as a kid is that the first season, someone like a London Tipton or a Cat Valentine, they weren't as dumb the first season. They transitionally got more and more useless or dumb, as people would label them as. I feel as if they made them more ignorant and made them seem more childlike because people seem to have ate it up. Though they portrayed teen characters, these are just good examples that I would say perfected the infantilization of the coquette.
A trope that I hated watching growing up was the dumb character trope. I never find you funny, I never find you amusing, and I never find you entertaining. Because 9 times out of 10, the character didn't even start out as dumb, they would just become dumb as the show ran on, and I never understood why. Here's some examples. Kat Valentine. In the first season, she wasn't even dumb, she was just dramatic, which makes sense because she is an actor. And she would just say these outlandish stuff about her brother that didn't make her dumb, it just made her eccentric. But by the time she got to Sam and Kat, I was just like, okay, who is this girl? They did the same thing with Chelsea from That's So Raven. In the first season, I remember her being actually really smart and really sensible. Like, she would actually try to get Raven out of these dumb decisions. And she was just a little bit quirky, and I guess they decided to use her quirkiness to turn her into a very dumb person. And one of the greatest injustice of this trope is what they did to London Tipton. In the first season, she wasn't even dumb. She was just very ignorant because she was a privileged rich girl. And she would say these things that made the audience go like, wow, she is just not self-aware. But then they had her turn into a little 5-year-old.
Sorry, y'all, my audio totally cut off in the first half of this video, but I refuse to go back and re-say what I just said because I felt like I said everything perfectly. So we're just gonna act as if that didn't happen. So this kind of portrayal of the Kat Valentines and the London Tiptons has deep historical roots. Traditionally in the past, women were seen as needing to be saved, needing protection, and being less capable than men. These things reinforce the childlike traits that is portrayed in the infantilization of the coquette. Now, it's just not movies and TV shows. This is also seen heavily in social media. Now, some aren't acting exactly like a Kat Valentine or a London Tipton, but there are some that indeed are. Now, I have spoken about this particular trend about a year ago when I was discussing the downfall of TikTok, and this was when the NPC trend was heavily going on. You had creators hopping on live, acting and behaving as if they were children, and a lot of them were women. These women would be live streaming dressed in schoolgirl outfits, dressed in pink frilly clothing, dressing like babies, using baby voices, and they would even say things that their viewers would request them to do for money.
I'm a fat TikTok. Thank you for the professional. I love roses. Remember, it's the new thing. It's the only you. Roses. Gracias. Picture butter. Eventually, inspired by my body. Of course.
I don't know if you guys remember Pinky Doll. I mean, she even has doll in her name. Doll is definitely coquette, and also the infantilization of the coquette. She would say things like, ice cream so good. Thank you for the roses. Thank you for the roses. These phrases she would say in a baby voice, and she did not really speak like this.
Gang gang. Ice cream so good. Thank you, Jackie. Gang gang. Gang gang. Gang gang. Oh, special. Gang gang. Rah, rah, rah. Gang gang. Gang gang. Balloon. Gang gang. Gang gang.
The NPC trend in general could be seen as a sexual kink and a fetish. And whether these women that would go on these live streams and participate in the NPC trend would characterize themselves as acting childlike or participating in sex work, it can very well be interpreted as such. And if they weren't thinking it, their viewers potentially were thinking that.
The person pretending to be the AI NPC is basically a human doll, right? And the person viewing and donating is the doll master that can, with their donations, control how the doll acts and reacts to certain stimulus. And the human doll has to perform certain expected repeated action. And sometimes the viewers will button mash like you do in Super Smash Bros. In attempts to make the human doll basically like spaz out and like go out of control. This is in order to simulate the human doll arriving. And the point is not that the human doll is arriving on camera, which is also part of it, but it's that the human doll is arriving out of their control. And technically you can consume whatever adult entertainment that you like, but I'm gonna call a spade and say that's fucking weird. Extra weird when you factor in the idea that all of these NPCs are pretending to be children. Granted, it's not. Their defense is, I'm just role-playing, but this shit is spilling onto TikTok, where the actual children are.
Oh, and this even connects to Hollywood, TV shows, movies. When it comes to the anime characters and the K-pop performers, they very well often adopt these hyper cute and hyper childlike personas. And we'll be discussing corn, if y'all know what I'm talking about, a little bit later, because there's even a portrayal of anime, which is a very popular category on corn websites that use these innocent childlike personas to push that form of content. I mean, just the Japanese culture in general, even in Japanese corn. But we'll get into corn a little bit later, okay? Hold on. Let's get into female performers. So we spoke about the influencers and the live streamers that adopt the Coquette infantilization. Let's now talk about some of y'all fave celebrities that have done the same thing. Now, it wasn't just Kat Valentine that was being infantilized. So was Ariana Grande, even if she wasn't doing it intentionally. I mean, Ariana was known for her ponytail and her big bows and big poofy frilly baby doll dresses, and she kept it going for quite some time. And it makes you question, was she dressing like this in order to feed into the hyper childlike persona that so many seem to love today? Then just recently, Cardi B was on stage, presumably pregnant, might I say. Allegedly. She looked like she had a little bump there. But she was dressed in a schoolgirl aesthetic. She had frilly bows all over her hair. She had on a schoolgirl outfit and she was twerking. Why is the schoolgirl aesthetic seen as sexy? Schoolgirls are typically what age? Not 18 and older, and even 18. Let's not even get into 18. 18, there's an infatuation of the age 18 because these women are legally allowed to be with men, but they're also still teenagers, which so many seem to fail to forget. I don't even know why the age 18 is legalized, quite frankly, but you know, that's besides the point. We'll get into that a whole different day. That's a whole different topic for a different day in general. I now see Hailey Bieber, Kylie Jenner, Olivia Rodrigo feeding into this hyper cute way of dressing. I mean, Kylie Jenner changed her entire aesthetic. She went from the baddie aesthetic to now being this prairie soft girl that likes to wear frilly dresses and run in fields. Hailey Bieber is wearing bows in her hair, and so many other celebrities and influencers. And I just want to make it very clear that not all of these celebrities and influencers and just your everyday people are intentionally dressing like children in order to get attention. A lot of people just don't know. It's not exactly their fault. But that's why we're talking about the deeper history behind the idea of Coquette. So in synopsis, all of these women are participating in an exaggerated youthful appearance that can come off as controversial due to its sexualizing young girls and infantilizing women. I mean, heck, even in the club, I'm constantly seeing girls out with frilly mini skirts on and big bows in their hair. Like everybody is dressing like they're 9 without knowing the history of the Coquette. And I even almost fell victim to it because I definitely did buy bows because I thought bows were so cute. When I was a little girl, when I was 12, I used to wear bows in my hair all the time. I don't even know if I can find a video. Maybe I can, because I think I did it for my Halloween costume video I did when I was like 12 or 13 years old, when I had a bow in my hair and then I had on the Little Red Riding Hood costume. I don't know if I should show it because I was underage, but I don't know. Let me just show you guys. I'm probably showing it to y'all right now on this side of the screen. But this is how women are dressing today, and they're not 12 or 13. These are grown women. Can you see now how it can infantilize women and then also hypersexualize young girls? Yeah. So now let's talk about corn. We briefly spoke on this when it came to anime and it came to Japanese culture, making women come off as if they're children in these types of videos that are online. But girls dressed as babies, teenagers, spankings, and punishment content are all very popular in the corn world. You'll see punishments by stepdad, stepmom, just very interesting content that infantilizes women. I mean, even in this world, a lot of corn stars have stated that there is definitely an age cap in that world. And the women indeed do like to portray themselves as younger as long as possible. So what makes this wrong? I mean, everybody has a kink, everybody has a fetish, you might like what you like, but this is where it can potentially be a problem. Excessive consumption of corn can in general lead to an increase of more extreme and different type of content, which may indeed include illegal material, whether watching it or acting on it. And according to many sources, it is often a combination of psychological issues and personal history that can contribute to this behavior. With this newfound information, there is plenty of evidence that certain genres of porn, especially those that depict younger looking adults, or even just scenarios with power imbalances, like I said, stepdad, teenage daughter, punishment in general content, this could potentially desensitize viewers and escalate their interest in more, should I say, taboo subject matter. And with this, let's get into misogyny linked to Coquette. Coquette and the infantilization of it can not only psychologically impact men, it also can psychologically impact women. With women dressing more childlike, they can also begin behaving more childlike by internalizing these characteristics of how they're dressing and the popularity of it in general. This can also impact their personal relationships, which can make them seem and act more submissive and dependent to their partners and the people they interact with on a day-to-day basis. A lot of feminist theorists critique the infantilization of women in general and the Coquette aesthetic as a way to further push patriarchal views and to regain control of women, which is very funny because we all know Coquette stemmed from the complete opposite. The Coquette woman in the past used the Coquette aesthetic to control men by being a seductress. But now it seems as if women are looking at it as being more submissive and internalizing those submissive qualities and behaviors. According to them, the Coquette aesthetic limits a woman's autonomy while reinforcing gender inequalities, which gets into my last and final point, which is the homemaker core. So if you guys may or may not know, there has been a lot of conversation about women in general no longer wanting to work a full-time job, wanting to be stay-at-home wives, stay-at-home girlfriends, just go back to the way things used to be. Exactly what women, wait, let me specify, white women fought so hard for, which was to work. And I say white women because black women, we worked all of our lives. And a lot of black women never had the opportunity to be a stay-at-home wife. But the popularity of just being at home and not working while your husband works full-time and you just take care of the children. You see so many creators just discussing what it's like to be a stay-at-home mom, a stay-at-home wife, a stay-at-home girlfriend. Like I said, this is something that is being really popularized and a lot of women really enjoy consuming this form of content and making it. One creator specifically I'm going to speak on, which I know y'all already know who I'm about to talk about, is no other than Nara Smith. Nara Smith is a content creator that has amassed over 10 million followers on all of her platforms together. Nara has gained quite a bit of fame as showing her day-in-the-day life of being a homemaker, a stay-at-home mom that cooks for her husband and her 3 children. Now, shockingly, Nara just turned 23. I believe she's younger than me. So Nara has been married for over 4 years to her husband, Lucky Blue, and people romanticize the heck out of their lives. Now, let me be clear, I am a Nara Smith fan. I do really love her content, mainly because I really want to get more into cooking, especially homemade meals from scratch. Cooking is really fun for me and I just enjoy it, and I do desire to one day be a wife and a mother. Maybe not at her age, because that would be right now, but later on in my life. But Nara promotes the idea of the homemaker aesthetic in totality. And the homemaker aesthetic in general is where women are depicted as submissive in a very traditional and domestic way. And it can appear that this is taking a step back, correct? In general, the homemaker aesthetic reinforces outdated stereotypes about women's roles and their capabilities, implying that their primary value lies in homemaking and being domestic, rather than their more diverse set of skills, like women being outside of the home. And it's almost as if the aesthetic is glorifying this very narrow mindset that women can only do one thing. Now, me personally, I don't believe Nara's doing anything necessarily wrong, but I can see how it is romanticized. Let's be clear, Nara is not the traditional homemaker, okay? She is an influencer, she is very successful, her husband's very successful, and he seems to be hands-on. Once again, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but he seems to be a good man that helps his wife out when it comes to taking care of their children and even providing meals. If she cooks, he washes dishes. If she's up with the baby, he's up with the baby. If she's dealing with the baby, their newest newborn, he's with the older children. So they definitely do not represent what we did see in the past when it came to women being domesticated. But in general, the homemaker aesthetic and pushing women being stay-at-home wives and girlfriends is definitely romanticized and problematic. There have been women that have come out and said the aesthetic can be harmful in several different ways. And a lot of these influencers aren't speaking on the truth of what it is like being a traditional homemaker, especially one that is not making content from it. Being a homemaker is not all picturesque and happy and aesthetic as people portray it to be once again. Homemaking in general incorporates hard work and skills that are often undermined by not only men, but also by society. And a lot of women do not have this soft life that is made as a movie or is romanticized on TikTok and Instagram.
I want to start this video by saying that I'm not asking for money and I'm not asking for sympathy. What I'm asking for is if you are a young 14, 16, 21-year-old girl, listen up. I drove to the grocery store. I need to grab some milk and bread and a couple things, flipped open the bank app on my phone, and I've been sitting in my car crying ever since because I never have enough money. And why do I never have enough money? Because when I was a 19-year-old girl, I fell in love. My Mormon faith told me that I was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. I got married. I started having babies. I dropped out of college. I never had a career. My only jobs that I ever had in life were a waitress at the Olive Garden and managing a pretzel maker in a mall. Oh, my first couple years of marriage, I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I bought a windshield business. I was 20. And my Mormon stake president reminded me that women weren't supposed to work, so I quit my own business, handed it over to my husband, took my name off of it. I would work our family business throughout the next 24 years of my marriage, but I never got paid. I didn't have a salary. My name wasn't on it. I literally worked for room and board. That's it. I would eventually also launch a custom home building company with my uncle as the architect and my friends as the builder, my designs, my realtor. But again, because my husband was the man, his name was on all of the projects, his name was on the business. I remember one of the last custom homes that I built, we sold it and made about a $260,000 profit. That money all went into his bank account. I didn't even have a bank account. I should have said that in the beginning. I never had a bank account. He would give me little envelopes of cash to go grocery shopping with. Anyway, that house sells, the money goes in the bank. I just asked if I could buy myself a piano with the money. I had worked on building that house for 2 years. All of the money went into his bank account. Nothing was under my name. I got a piano and I got a free house to live in. And I got groceries. So I found myself divorced at age 44 just 5 years ago, and within just a few months I was living in my car while he made about $250,000. He would eventually quit that job so that he wouldn't have to pay alimony and child support. He has only paid alimony one time ever in the 5 years since we've been divorced. Once ever. Right after my divorce, I remember being really confident about my ability to get a job, so I put together a resume. I remember one of the first interviews that I had as a management position for a windshield company, similar to the one that we had run. And the man actually laughing as he was interviewing me, like he was really sympathetic. He wasn't being a douchebag, but he was laughing. And he's like, so let me get this straight. You helped manage your family windshield business with your husband, but you were mostly a stay-at-home mom, and all you did was like the marketing and the hiring, firing, and some of the strategy for the business. But it became really apparent that I needed so many more skills to have any type of management job. I couldn't even work the basic computers. He told me in the interview, please don't apply for any more jobs like this. You are not qualified at all. You're not capable of doing this unless you go back to school and get your degree or get some different experience. And so I ended up, my first job after my divorce was $11 an hour, 4 hours a day, working as an assistant to a school teacher in an elementary school. I made $44 a day. For 24 years, I lived in $1 million homes. I vacationed all over the world. I spent my summers in Hawaii. I could buy myself $500 jeans, diamond tennis bracelets. We had boats and RVs and whatever I wanted. And it never bothered me once that my financial security was dependent on that man being in love with me. I never realized that him liking me or not liking me or finding me sexy or attractive or interesting determined whether or not my children could eat, whether or not I could buy myself a fucking jug of milk and a loaf of bread. So I had my 5th surgery in 2 years, 2 weeks ago, and I'm supposed to be in bed resting, and I can't because I worked 7 days a week since my divorce 5 years ago, which is why I'm covered in paint and looking like crap. We actually have a 4-day weekend here in Tucson, and since my partner isn't working, he's working on furniture flip partner projects with me. I have no retirement. I have no savings, no education, no resume. I was almost a straight A student throughout all of my education. I went to college at age 17. I had dreams for my future. I'm working so hard to get myself out of just perpetual side hustle hell. There's not a day that goes by that I don't wonder why. Why I didn't have a fucking backup plan. Why my kids eating and having stability was dependent on a romantic relationship. Why nobody told me to put money in the bank. Why nobody told me don't have babies until you have an education and some experience. Don't have so many kids. I wish somebody had told me to put my name on our vehicle loans and to put my name on our houses. I wish somebody had told me that it's okay to put those babies in daycare for a couple days a week and go to college and have a job. And I think I need to do an entire trad wife sequel, because you can be happy and rich and loving your life like Ballerina Farm until the guy walks out. I want you guys to imagine for a minute, even rich Hannah, if Deanna walked out, if all of his financial backing and he had to sell the farm, and then what does she have? Find another rich boy to marry? I just don't want one more woman to DM me, comment, send me their stories, cry to me about how hard it is for them to support their families, and I am so tired of living my own story. We have to make this stop. Raise your daughters to be financially independent. Focus on their futures and educations just as much as you focus on your sons. I wish that someone had done that for me.
This is going to be controversial, but when it comes to the trad wife at 20 to single mom at 40 pipeline, y'all really have no one but yourselves to blame. What do y'all think the second wave feminist movement was all about? The grannies been told us. The aunties been told us. Our grandmothers had to fight the U.S. government to get bank accounts. And barely even 50 years later, y'all are voluntarily giving them up because Connor from English 101 told you he was going to love you forever. What? Y'all, please BFFR. We are so much smarter than this, ladies. Do not trust the relationship decisions you make at a time where your boobs are fully developed, but your brain is not. When you let a man have complete and total financial control over you, he will always eventually fuck you over. At the end of the day, they're always going to have the mindset of, well, you wasn't with me shooting in the gym. The entire stability of your life cannot rely on a man that you marry in your 20s wanting you for the next 60 years. And vice versa, because the tea is, what happens when you wake up and you don't want him anymore? What happens when you're ready to walk away, but you have no job experience, no bank account, nothing, because your entire future relied on this guy, this one human being wanting you forever, or you wanting them forever. I love my man down. I would die for that man right now. I truly am in love with him from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head, but I will always love myself more. Always. I'm talking separate bank accounts, prenup, the works. Because when you fail to plan your what? Planning to fail. Always remember, if you don't take nothing else away from this conversation, always remember a man is not a plan. A man is not a plan. A man is not a plan.
So how does homemaker core tie into the coquette aesthetic? You can see women dressed in these frilly dresses. They're all done up. They have their hair very nice, makeup on. They're taking care of their kids, fully clothed. They're not looking like what the reality of being a mom is like. A lot of moms talk about the struggles of being a parent and how sometimes you can't even get out of bed and how difficult in general parenting is. Thankfully now there are women that are talking about the reality of what it is like being a homemaker and that it's not exactly what is depicted as the homemaker core or the homemaker aesthetic is on social media, which is a good thing, I believe, because it's not made for everybody. Being a homemaker, being a stay-at-home mom in general is just not meant for everyone. And it definitely is a lot of hard work. So in closing, I just want to say some people question whether or not the coquette aesthetic is playing into the male gaze and is problematic when it comes to infantilizing women, while others are looking at coquette as more of the traditional way of what coquette was, which is more rebellious and reclaiming their femininity. So in general, the coquette aesthetic and coquette fashion is a mixture of both. I can see it as women reclaiming their girlhood, especially in today's economy and just the changes of what's going on in the world today. People just wanting to stem back to like the early 2000s when times seemed to be just a bit more simpler than they are now. Going back to that innocent, childlike way of dressing and that aesthetic in general, through fashion in particular, can feel empowering and can feel comforting towards some women. But we also have to recognize that there are some people, primarily men, that are looking at this aesthetic as a fetish and it can appease their pedophilic mindsets. But you guys, I of course want to know what you guys think in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on the coquette aesthetic, coquette fashion? Do you believe it's problematic? Do you believe that it's a great way to be rebellious and for women to regain their femininity? Let's get the discussion going on in the comments. As always, be respectful and everybody deserves to have a different opinion. If you guys like this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Please be sure to join my book club and follow me on all my social medias linked down below. I love and I appreciate you guys so much and I will see you all in my very next video. Love you guys. Bye. Mwah.
Taking you in this moment, come get close like you own name. Read your aura, you want more of all this love, you'll be your name. Release all of your burden.